In today's video, I just want to level with you on why some people succeed in wholesale real estate and others simply don't. Let's dive right in. The number one reason I see why people fail when it comes to wholesale real estate is they simply underestimate the amount of time, money, and effort it's going to take when they first start out. Probably has something to do with people running ads or sharing YouTube content that's like how to make money with no time, effort, credit, skill. This isn't a get rich quick business. It is a business in that it takes effort, execution, hard work, and if we're being honest, either time or money or a mix of both. What I normally see is the more time you put in, the less money you have to put in. The more money you're able to put in, the less time it takes you to get profitable, get deals done. Fact of the matter is the average cost per deal I'm seeing is between like $2,500 to $5,000. Now it's going to vary based off the market. The more expensive and the more competitive the market, it's just going to cost you more to get that first deal. Now, if we take kind of that number of $2,500 to $5,000 to get a deal, and we use something like cold calling, for instance, I've got friends of mine that have entire teams of cold callers that are overseas that they're paying $5 an hour to, and they're seeing a cost per deal of $2,500. Well, if we do the math on that, that's 400 hours of dialing to get a single deal. Now, could you potentially get one faster than that? Sure. But if you go into it with that proper expectation of like, hey, this might take me 400 hours, you're probably going to be a lot less likely to give up than if you see somebody's reel on Instagram and think you can call for an hour or two a day and that you're going to be a millionaire in 6 months. Same thing with like direct mail. All the people hit me up and they're like, hey, can I order like 100 letters? And I'm like, dude, the average shows us that you need to do like 2,000, 2,500 minimum to get any traction. So sure, you can do 100, but realize you might have to do that 25 times before you get the result that you're looking for. To put like a quick parable on this, I've lost roughly 40 pounds over the past 2 years. It wasn't like I started exercising, I started eating better, and like day one, I was like, look at me, I'm so happy now. No, it was like the end of a month, I was like, well, the scale shows a lower number and I think I look a little different. And then over the course of 6 months, I'm looking back and I'm like, wow, I've really made some progress. But this isn't one of those like you do a little bit of marketing, you do a little bit of calling and you've got the end result you want. It's going to take time for that result to really stack up in a noticeable way. The second reason that we see people not succeed when it comes to wholesaling real estate is they're putting in the right amount of time, effort, and money. They're just focusing on the wrong things. To follow up with like the cold calling example from point one, let's say you're cold calling, but you're using bad numbers. You're buying phone numbers for like a penny from somebody on Fiverr. It doesn't matter how many hours you put in. If the numbers are bad, you're never going to get a deal. Flip side, if you get like good quality data, you're going to get more people on the phone. You're going to have more connections. You're going to get more deals done faster. If we use like direct mail, for instance, what if you mail bad addresses? The mail's not going to get there. Or if you mail like owner-occupied properties that are tagged as vacant, that means the post office has effectively said, hey, we're not delivering here, but you're trying to send them mail. Guess what? It's going to return to sender. Or if you're using like pay-per-click or Facebook ads, but if your website sucks, it's not going to convert. You're not going to get deals. At this point, for all of my companies, I've dropped over $1 million of my own cash building our brands. I can tell you firsthand, if your website doesn't work, you're not going to get results out of it. The third reason we see people struggle when it comes to wholesaling real estate is they start to shut down because of their competition instead of being inspired by it. I see this all the time from people when they're just starting out of like, oh, my market is so competitive. It's so saturated. Look, everybody thinks their market is harder than everyone else's. I've met people in like small, tiny towns where it would be like shooting fish in a barrel for me. Tell me, oh, I can't get deals done here because, it's too small of a town or it's so competitive or there's one guy who does all the deals. The fact of the matter is like what you look for is what you're going to find. So if you believe that there are no opportunities, guess what? You're not going to find any. Flip side, if you operate from a place of abundance and like, hey, I know there's more than enough to go around, you're going to do very well. At the end of the day, you should be inspired by your competition, not shut down or get afraid because of it. I tell people all the time, there's way dumber people than you and I successfully wholesaling real estate. That should be inspiring to you. The fourth reason I see newbies struggle to wholesale real estate is they're blowing one of the fundamentals. This is probably one of the most common problems I see amongst new wholesalers. If you're overestimating what a place is worth, you're going to be offering too much money for places. As somebody that does deals, I run into this all the time where I'm talking to a seller and I'm like, hey, my offer's 200. And they're like, well, somebody else offered me 400. Well, it was probably one of you guys that didn't know what you were doing, ran bad comps, and assumed the place was worth more than what it was worth. On that same token, if you assume it needs less work than what it actually needs, you're going to only budget for a $20,000 remodel when me, the flipper, is coming in being like, dude, this needs $75K. So my offer is going to come in way lower than yours. Nobody's going to buy your wholesale deals. Flip side of both of those, if I'm overestimating the amount of work or underestimating the value, nobody's going to accept my offers because they're going to be just disgustingly low. So a quick way to diagnose this, if you're getting properties under contract and you can't sell them, you're either overestimating what the place is worth or you're underestimating the amount of work it needs. Flip side to that, if you're not getting anything under contract, nobody is giving you the time of day, you might have some other things to work on that we'll get to in the next point, but it's also very likely you're just being way too conservative. When I first started out in real estate back in 2014, we used the 65% rule. So 65% of what the place was worth, minus the cost of repairs, minus what I wanted to make. These were really low offers. Fast forward 2021, 2022, we're now at 75% of what the place is worth, minus repairs, minus what we want to make. I know people in more expensive markets that were up to like 80 or 85%. Now, some people are kind of scaling that back right now, but you get the gist. The fifth reason you might be struggling, and I kind of touched on this in the last one, your people skills might be a little lacking. There's basically three things I see in investors when they're going to meet with sellers. One, they either show up confidently, build good rapport, and set themselves up for success, which, that's ideal. Second thing we see in real estate pretty often, for lack of better words, is like the a-hole personality type. This is the guy that shows up, hey, your house is gross. You need me to save you from your problem. Here's my offer. If you don't sell it to me, nobody else is going to buy this. We see this all the time as service providers where people almost get this attitude of like, I gave you $1, therefore I own you. And you're not going to get results from that. People simply aren't going to want to do business with you. We've seen local guys that we're competing with on deals walk in, be like, yeah, your house is ugly. My offer's here. Best I can do. The neighborhood's awful. Get out while you can. You're probably not going to make that homeowner who's lived there for 40 years feel like they want to do business with you. The kind of third personality type we see when it comes to meeting with sellers is people are timid or awkward or uncomfortable. They just don't make you feel like they can close the deal. Eye contact's off. Maybe they're a little soft-spoken, quiet, fidgety. They just don't exude that hey, I'm going to handle this for you kind of thing. My actual recommendation for this is to go read How to Win Friends and Influence People and actually apply the tips, test them out. Things like making eye contact, shaking hands, letting them talk more than you do, being a really good active listener. Actually try these out with your sellers, and I guarantee you'll get better results. The sixth reason we see people fail when it comes to wholesaling real estate is they give up 3 feet from gold. One of my things, anytime I'm working with somebody in this business, I ask them hey, do you have a quit date or a quit number? A lot of people in this business have hey, I'm going to try this for 30 days, or I'm going to spend $2,000 on this. And if it doesn't work, it's a scam, right? That's really not what I look for. I look for the people that know that this works and know that they're going to figure it out. Here's why. The average cost to get a deal is $2,500 to $5,000. a lot of people make the mistake of they'll do $2,500 worth of marketing. They don't have a result within 30 days. So they close their Resimpli account. They shut off their call porter phone numbers. They cancel their Carrot website. They effectively just like close up shop. But that $2,500 to $5,000 is the average, meaning you might get a deal for less than that. It might take you longer than that. We had a guy recently in CCF land a deal that he'd been working for 2 years. If that was the only marketing campaign he'd done, can you honestly tell me that you would still be paying for your CRM and your tracking phone numbers if you hadn't gotten results out of this 2 years after the fact? I highly, highly doubt it. Now, I'll be blunt. I got lucky. I got my first deal off my first 2,500 pieces within 30 days and made $12,500, netting $10K in profit after all expenses. Super great for me. I don't know that I would be here today if I hadn't popped off that quick, but I do just kind of want to give you the proper expectation of it might take you a little bit longer or just another phone call. Ed Milet has the premise of like just one more. If you're in the gym, just one more rep. If you're making calls, just one more call. If you're following up with somebody and you've been told no 3 times, try it just one more, right? You want to make sure you don't give up right before you get that result. The 7th and last reason that I see people struggle when it comes to wholesaling real estate is in their mind, they have a very specific idea of what this should look like. They believe they're going to get a call on a house that looks like the house they live in or the house they grew up in. They're going to get a great deal on it. And they're going to sell it to somebody in like a conventional manner. That might not be your first or your next deal. My first house was anything but typical. It was literally 3 sections. We had a dirt floor cabin attached to a block foundation, attached to like a poured 2-bedroom condo. It was the most Frankenstein chopped up thing. They'd abandoned the first 2 builds. We're living in the 3rd. It was on a gravel road in an unincorporated part of town on well water and septic, which I had never dealt with. I was in this thing like, would anybody even want to buy this? And our offer was stupidly low because we simply didn't know. We got the place for $35,000. Sold it to a flipper for $47,500. So it might not look like what you're thinking. You might get a call on a mobile home on some land, and you might have to figure out, okay, how do I value a mobile home? Or you might get a call on a lot in the city that had a house on it that was torn down. Made over $30,000 just listing a lot on the market earlier last year. So don't try to like cram a square peg through a round hole. Work all of the opportunities you get, especially early on, because you don't know yet which one is going to pan out. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. At this point, I've done more wholesale deals than I can count. I can tell you this is a viable, sustainable business model if you get these things dialed in and if you make sure you're building in enough profit so that you can stay in business. My name is Ryan Dossey. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe. Otherwise, talk to y'all next time.